Hello and welcome to the CPUX webinar from UXQB and iSQI. Thank you everybody for joining us today. In the next hour, we would like to tell you give you some more information about us, the iSQI group, some information about the UXQB, and especially, of course, information about what you're all waiting for, information about the different exams you can take with the UXQB. So let me please first introduce me and Mr. Thomas Geis. We both are guiding you for the presentation today. Thomas is the president of the International Usability and User Experience Qualification Board, the UXQB. And I am Franziska Mülling, I am from the iSQI. And I will guide you through the presentation as Thomas is the one who definitely has the more interesting facts for you on the topic you all want to know something about. So this is our agenda for today. I will start with giving you some really general information about us, the iSQS certification body, and what our work is about. And afterwards, you will get a lot of information about the different certifications the UXQB is offering to you and what they contain. So let's start a really quick some quick information about the iSQI. You have here all our numbers and important facts and figures. As you see, we have more than 30,000 certifications every year with iSQI. These are mainly IT professionals that we certify. And we have globally more than 250 trainings providers we are working with. And what I think is also very special is that we certify IT professionals in more than 100 countries all over the world. iSQI was founded in 2004, and today we have our headquarters in Potsdam in Germany, really close to Berlin. Here you can see most or all of our products, and as you see, there are a lot of different products we offer to you. We have a wide portfolio that mainly contains certifications for IT, as I told you before. This is where we started in 2004 with software testing, but now we also offer different certifications, for example, in requirements engineering, in different agile products, also with lean or mobile products. And of course, as you all know, we wouldn't be here if we wouldn't do that. We also have some products in the field of usability and user experience. So let me give you, please, a short overview just to let you know how this works, how the work of iSQI works and how we are connected to the UXQB. We as iSQI are the certification body. So this means we are an independent certifier who is giving or conducting the exams, and the board in this, the UXQB, is in charge of for example, the curriculum. They are giving the certification procedure, the certification regulations, and of course, the questions, the exam questions. But they are not conducting trainings. These are conducted by training providers, the third party in this. The training provider needs to be accredited, this way. And there you can get all the information you need for taking your exam, which is, again, then conducted by us, the iSQI, as independent certifier. So I hope this was a quick overview of what the iSQI is and how iSQI and UXQB work together. And now I would like to give the mic to Thomas, who is already there and happy to tell you some things about UXQB and their certification offerings.
Thanks a lot, Franziska. Franziska, one question: do I have to? Which button do I have to press to share the screen? This one I don't see at the moment.
Share in the middle.
Oh yes, of course. It's exactly that word. Thank you very much. Okay, profile, share screen. Let's do that. Screen sharing tips. Don't show these tips again. That's the main user interface for tips is the checkbox. Don't show these tips again. Okay, let's share screen. Okay, second button. What do you want to share? It exactly gives me one option. Let's share the one thing that you offer me to share. Now I think you should see my screen, and I will put up my slides. Here we go. Right. Hello, everybody. Welcome in my bedroom. My name is Thomas Geis. I am one of the co-founders and currently president of the International Usability and User Experience Qualification Board, UXQB. I have been working in the field of usability and user experience for actually 28 years now. I'm an engineer. You know, if you ask yourself where do I come from, because in the field of usability and user experience, which is actually more and more referred to as UX. Let's see when this is the next big thing. But I've been trained as an engineer in automatic control engineering, and almost 30 years ago, I more or less by chance entered the field of usability engineering, and I have been staying with that profession ever since. During my professional career, I've got engaged into the ISO standardization. I joined an ISO standards committee, which I'm now heading, which is the ISO standards committee, Common Industry Format for Usability, also referred to as the CIF. This is where process outputs for or as part of human-centered design are being standardized in terms of what has to be in a context of use description, what has to be the content of a user requirements specification, what has to be in a test report, usability test report, or an inspection report. And so I've been quite engaged. I'm really engaged into identifying, let's say, guidelines that can be applied across projects, across contexts, and I also edited several ISO standards for usability. One of them is ISO 9241 Part 110, the so-called interaction principles. And I'm currently also editor of ISO 9241 Part 210, which is human-centered design for interactive systems. Okay, that much about me. So I'm making my money basically with usability and user experience. This is what I live off. What is the UXQB? Just to get a bit of an idea, UXQB is a non-profit organization that was established about 8 years ago, and the UXQB is operated by volunteers, and we are the ones who maintain the qualification scheme for the so-called certified professional for usability and user experience. And what you see on this list is our national experts from various countries. The UXQB is basically operating in conjunction with what we call national member bodies, national, let's say, or nationwide organizations that basically run the interest group for usability and user experience. We have organizations in Germany, German UPA, also the Swiss UPA. They call themselves UX Schweiz. We have the British or the UXPA UK, United Kingdom, as a national member body. We have UX Denmark, which is the body in Denmark, and we also have UX Pro, which is a large non-profit organization in Austria, looking after usability and user experience in Austria. So it's an organization run by volunteers, and the whole mission or the whole goal of this organization is to have a internationally, let's say, harmonized qualification scheme for usability professionals, where you can or based on that scheme, you can, as Franziska already said, you can gather certifications through certification tests, and we are aiming at spreading a unified, a consistently internationally applicable qualification scheme for usability and user experience professionals. So that is UXQB. It's not a sort of a rich organization. It really relies on volunteers. And let's jump right into the subject. When we talk about certifying people for usability and user experience, the first question that should be answerable is, what on earth is the difference between usability and user experience? Are these is one of the two the more fancy one? Is one of them the old one, the other one a new one? The answer is, it's two concepts that are complementary. And usability, and all these terms are defined. Usability is defined in a standard. User experience is defined in a standard. I'm having the numbers of the standards in brackets below the titles. And if you ask yourself, what is the difference between usability and user experience? Well, usability. Let's start with usability. Usability looks at what happens while users use a so-called interactive system. Term interactive system means it can be hardware, software, a combination of both. It could be hardware, software, and people, a service that is assisted by digital equipment. And so usability aims at making sure that while people use an interactive system, that they are effective. Effective means they get to their intended outcomes. That's all it means, no matter how long it takes. Effectiveness is basically defined as people get their job done with the system. But that is only sort of the entry point of usability. Then usability assumes that people are efficient while they use an interactive system. And that is actually the main subject behind all those human-centered design efforts that companies take when they run projects. We want to make sure that those who use the system are more efficient with the system than without the system, because there's no reason in completing your tasks with let's say with a robot cleaning your windows, who does the job not as good as you and takes ages and basically throws down the flowers while from the windowsill while they are doing the job. So usability is about making people effective to begin with, then making sure they are efficient, which means they have no extra steps to make. They have all the information they need while they are completing the task. If they run into errors, they use errors, they recover from them quickly. Ideally, they don't even run into them. They learn the system while they use it. And the assumption is that if people are effective and efficient with a system, that they are satisfied with what they are experiencing while they use the product. So usability is sort of user experience while you use the system. However, it more looks at objectively measurable attributes of what's happening there. Effectiveness can be measured. It can be measured how long you take to complete a task with the system. It can be measured how efficient you are with the system in terms of steps you make, and even the length of the mouse path during the completion of a task can be measured. And there are also questionnaires for measuring satisfaction. So actually usability is more about objective data while people use a system. And user experience assumes, as a concept, it assumes that before people use the system, that they already anticipate what it would be like once they use the system. And once they have used the system, that people have a sort of, they have a response. They respond to what they have experienced or what they have experienced. So there's a phase after having used the system. I call it digested use here. The term didn't make it in the standard, but it basically says what's in there, because user experience assumes that people have perceptions and responses about the use of a product, not only while they use it, but also before they have ever used it and after they have used it. And this is called user experience. It's all about the subjective perceptions and responses of people resulting from anticipated use or actual use or after use. This is what we call user experience. And of course, the assumption is that if we equip humans, people, users with interactive systems that produce positive perceptions, and produce positive responses, that then the product is more successful on the market and is just highly satisfactory to those who use it. So that is the definition of user experience, or an illustration of the definition of user experience. And we have to just make sure, as usability and user experience professionals, that we understand there are two concepts, they are complementary, and the difference between them is what I've shown on this slide. Now, if you ask yourself, what does that mean in practice if you apply those concepts? This is an online shop for glasses. It's the Mr. Specs shop. I have the URL down there. And Mr. Specs was a startup in Berlin. They are now the most successful, by sales figures, most successful glasses shop in Europe, online shop for glasses. And what they offer their users is that they can anticipate the use of the glasses that they sell. So before you decide on a pair of glasses, you can try them out online, and it's not sort of clumsy uploading pictures of yourself and trying to imagine what it would be like once you have those glasses. No, you can really interactively see yourself wearing a pair of glasses and make up your mind. You can take all time on earth before you decide. You might decide to try out glasses that you wouldn't even dare trying out in the shop, in the physical shop of a, what are these people called, in a glasses shop, let's say, in an analog glasses shop. So this is an example for the application of user experience in practice, because what we're seeing here is a user interface for anticipating the use of the product that you can buy in this shop. And that is a pretty cool thing to do and to have. If you try this out at home, you will see, old people like to use it and play around with it. For children, this is a toy. But by the end of the day, it's a very effective tool for selling glasses. And this company has shown it, not only because of this feature, but part of it is certainly this feature here. Okay, now just to get an idea, what is the sort of the practical application of user experience when it comes to designing user interfaces? And this online shop here that we are just looking at, based on this feature that we're seeing here, or the possibility to try out glasses, makes it very different to other online shops for buying a pair of glasses. Okay, now certified professional for usability and user experience, CPUX. If you ask yourself, what is UXQB doing here? Are we reinventing the world of guidelines for usability and user experience? No, we don't. Our aim is wherever there are ISO standards that describe how things should be done and which rules should be applied, we use those standards. And one of these standards is ISO 9241-210, which shows the activities that shall be performed as part of a development project, leading to, let's say, predictable usability and user experience. And this standard assumes that, well, in general, whenever you design interactive systems, you have to plan for usability and user experience. So it is assumed that the project plan explicitly already plans for activities such as under the context of use analysis, where you find out who are our users, who are our user groups, what is the way they work now, what are the scenarios that they are in. And for this, there is an explicit activity described in 9241-210. And as part of the UXQB work, we have defined or specified the deliverables that should come out of this activity. And these deliverables you will be faced with, the process and the deliverables you will be faced with when you are going through a certification test for the certified professional for usability and user experience. So just to give an idea about those activities, to begin with, we assume that requirements of users or requirements for using an interactive system don't fall from the sky. No, they are all implied in the context of use of our users. Therefore, the more we know about the context of use, the more likely we are to specify the right requirements for the system from the perspective of use. In English, you call them user requirements. In In German, it's actually, if you literally translate this into German, you would call them requirements for use, but anyway, no worries. User requirements is a term that everybody uses. So we assume that in each and every project, you specify the user requirements that are the basis for designing the interactive system. And when it comes to designing an interactive system, there are methods, there are notations, for example, use scenarios, storyboards, also task models here. We've seen the term up here. Up here, we talk about task models as they stand, as is. And here we talk about the task models for design, the ones where we say, come on, if we have an interactive system, the style in which people work might be smoother than it was before. And that's why we consider the so-called task models for design down here. And then there are things like style guides and low fidelity prototypes, high fidelity prototypes. These are all outcomes of human-centered design. And these should be applied when designing the user interface for an interactive system. And the standard assumes that your design decisions should be based on requirements that you have established before and that have been derived from the context of use for the system. And based on those activities, there is still what we call the uncertainty principle. We never know. Typically, an old rule in human-centered design is you never do it right at first try. We assume that human-centered design is an iterative process. There are surprises that we will be faced with. And because there are surprises, the best is to find those surprises during the development process or during the design process, I would even say, where we evaluate whatever we have designed for users, we evaluate it with users before we actually physically implement it. And the outcome of such evaluations are evaluation reports, of course. And these evaluation reports, they find typically usability problems that people have, also the strength of the user interface, but the focus is basically what has to be corrected before we continue. And when we test with users, what we find out is, on one hand, we find out we have overlooked aspects in the context of use that we have gaps in the context, in our understanding of the context of use, which we want to close, or we have overlooked requirements, user requirements that we find now during the test. It's natural, or maybe even if we have fully understood the context of use and we were pretty sort of appropriate with our requirements, we can still make plenty of mistakes from a pure design perspective. There's so many sort of things that you can do wrong when you are designing a user interface that we might simply find out that certain design decisions that we have made for the user interface did not prove to work for the user. So this is the iterative nature of the human-centered design process. And of course, we assume that once we have gone through such iterations, that we found everything that could be predicted before implementation, and then we can implement the product. So this is the human-centered design, if you like, process on a conceptual level, on a model level. It doesn't mean that you have long phases in the project where you first do a context of use analysis for a long time, and then you spend months in the user requirements, and then you design to afterwards find out that you've wasted time up here because you talked to the wrong people or what. So the idea is not to have this as a waterfall or not necessarily as a waterfall model, that you can also integrate it in your agile design project management, and that you can use this overall model here as part of sprints. And so, it has to fit into, or it does fit into any kind of process approach that has been found useful by the project team. Okay. So what's the problem? I mean, everybody's talking about usability and user experience. It sounds like when you listen to when you look around yourself and you see all those fancy smartphones, you think we are living in a new world and everything is good. So why worry about usability and user experience? Well, if we look into the reality of people using products, in particular business products, products that you use during work, like a travel claim system or any sort of enterprise resource management system, issuing invoices and whatever. If we look at the users in particular in the business using IT, using interactive systems, we can clearly say that users are often frustrated by interactive systems or services. And when we ask ourselves, what's the reason for that? What are the reasons for this? Well, on one hand, we always have a minority of trained usability and user experience specialists in projects. Everybody is sort of busy with making decisions, and everybody has their say when it comes to designing the user interface. But the proportion of trained and certified usability and user experience specialists in development teams is rather low, looking at the overall project team. And on the other hand, if there are usability and UX specialists, often they are consulted too late in the process, or not at all during product design and development. That is, we could talk about this for a long time, but it seems like teams, they look at, in many cases, they look at usability and user experience professionals as the people that we ask in the end that will heal our user interface. First, we do what we want, and then these people tell us what we have to change, and then everything is good. And that is a very naive viewpoint on usability and user experience specialists. So these people are consulted too late or not at all, and there is not too many of them. And the third interesting phenomenon that we have is lots of products that enter the market with their first version or release, they are quite okay. And over time, when the second and third release comes, they get more and more complex and clumsy and dreadful from the perspective of users. And that is another phenomenon that in the further development of products, that user requirements are not systematically taken into account when sort of expanding the product or changing the product. And our colleague from the United States, one of our colleagues from the United States, Jed Spool, who is a very experienced usability and user experience professional, he has given this phenomenon a name, and he calls it experience rot. Experience rot is the phenomenon that products become more and more complex over time, although they might have started quite nice from a user experience perspective. So that's important to note, because some of you, maybe all of you, are in such projects and probably confirm what I'm telling you, that usability is nothing that you should take for granted. Usability and user experience have to be designed into the system. And the one thing that will not work is if you try to test them into the system. Usability testing is one part of the overall human-centered design process, but it should not be the primary tool to find out what people really need. I would say usability testing is a rather expensive tool for user requirements engineering, while interviews, so-called contextual interviews or observations of users performing their tasks should be the primary method or tool, let's call it a method maybe, to design usability and user experience into the system. Okay, so the overall summary of that slide is usability and user experience are not to be taken for granted. They are not the normality. It's hard work to get this systematically into a product. Okay. Well, yeah, more usability means more market success, and because of that, UXQB is there to develop and maintain a worldwide certification program. So in particular, international teams or companies that work with partners from other countries far away, that they all speak the same language, that they all have the same vocabulary, I think, yes. That they all have the same vocabulary when it comes to usability and user experience, and that they all apply the same concepts. That is very, very useful for a successful product development. Okay. Now, what are the offerings? What are, UXQB is basically running a qualification program for usability and user experience professionals. And these can be certified against, like iSQI. Franziska told us they are the largest, or a very large certification body for certifying people, more than 30,000 per year. And iSQI is capable and actually offers the certification tests for UXQB around the globe. And what are those offerings? What is it that is in the UXQB or the CPUX certification program? Now, to begin with, we have 4 certifications that you can gather based on our qualification program. We have the CPUX-F, the Certified Professional for Usability and User Experience Foundation level. This is the basic level where we say you have to have passed that before you can head for what we call advanced levels. And when it comes to advanced level certification, we have 3 advanced level certificates. The first one is on user requirements engineering. Those who use other words, this is all about user research in early phases of projects. And we have the advanced level designing solutions, which is all about design based on user requirements. And we have the third one, usability testing and evaluation, which is the CPUX UT. So these are the 3 advanced level certifications that we offer. And how to gather those certifications. To begin with, the one thing that I have to say is, in general, or in principle, you are not required to go to a training first and then take a certification test. If you feel, or if you are secure, maybe that's better than feeling, if you are secure that you have all the knowledge required to pass these tests, you can walk right into them. The only requirement that we are having is that if you want to take an advanced level certification test, you have to have passed the foundation level before. And the way it works, the way the test works is, for the foundation level, in general, you either do a paper-based exam or you go to a so-called Pearson View Center, which is, I think there's 5,000 of them around the globe in many, many countries, where you can go to a computer center where typically people are trained in using computers, and they also offer their computer centers, their workplaces, to run the certification test for the UXQB. So either you have a paper-based test after a training, or you go to a Pearson View Center. And the third one that we somehow have to get into those slides soon is that you do the test online from at home. It's possible to do those tests remote. This all was developed along with the pandemic that we are in at the moment, and it has proven now for almost 2 sorry for almost 2 years that it looks like this is the primary way of people taking their certification test. But anyway, the foundation level test is a multiple choice test with 40 questions. 40 questions covering all the content that is in our so-called curriculum. We will have a look at it in a minute. And you have to answer 40 questions. You have 75 minutes to answer them if you are a native English speaker or a native German speaker. And if you are, let's say, a native Italian speaker, you can ask for 20% time extension, so you can take 90 minutes. Plenty of people make use of this. And so 40 questions in 75 minutes sounds like a simple thing to do. However, one thing I can tell you is we have a failure rate of approximately 20%, rather stable number. And to complete or to answer 40 questions in 75 minutes means that you don't even have 2 minutes for each of those questions, and the questions really aim at your understanding of what is written in the curriculum. And so you shouldn't take it too easy before you go to a test. And I'll talk about how to prepare for the test in a minute. So that's the foundation level. The foundation level CPUX-F is a purely theoretical test with a multiple choice test, 40 questions, and it's available in English, German, and Chinese. If we look at our advanced level certifications, the major difference between the foundation level certification and the advanced levels is that for the advanced levels, we always assume that there is a theoretical test and a practical test. So this is about understanding on one hand, and on the second hand, it's about mastering, practicing, showing that you are able to practice what is written in the curriculum. So if I start with the user requirements engineering professional, there is a multiple choice test. Should also add that they are all 40 questions. Each of those tests has 40 multiple choice questions. And for the advanced levels, you always have 90 minutes for the theoretical test, 90 minutes. And the practical test is subjective to each of the advanced levels. For example, in the user requirements engineering test, we assume that in the practical test, you have to conduct what's called a context of use analysis. You have to write down, or you have to understand what happens in a certain context of use for a system. And then you have to derive user requirements based on this information. This is a classroom test where the test participants, typically, let's say 6 to 10 people, sit in one classroom, and they have 6 hours to perform this practical exercise, so to say. And this is available, this user requirements engineering professional, as well as all the other advanced levels, is available in English and German. User requirements engineering. Then we have the designing solutions professional, again, 40 multiple choice questions. And here you get a design assignment. And it's, again, the test is a classroom setup where each of the participants in the room gets a design assignment. They have to create certain outcomes of human-centered design, like an information architecture and a low-fidelity prototype, and or a part of a low-fidelity prototype. And this practical exercise is designed to take 8 hours. It's a long day, but then you've done it. And this is how you gather the CPUX DS designing solutions. We launched that certification scheme by the end of last year. We are now in June. It is very popular. It's a very popular advanced level, I must say. And then we have the usability testing and evaluation professional, again, 40 multiple choice questions. And as part of the CPUX UT, the usability testing professional, people have to show that they can conduct a real usability test. So the practical test is a usability test where you are asked, you are giving an assignment, you will be given let's say a website or an online service that is publicly available, and you have to perform a usability test with 3 users. You have to plan it, you have to specify the user group profiles, you have to recruit users, you have to run the test, and you have to write a test report for this assignment. And this is a homework, let's say. This is something you can do at home or in the office if your employer is okay with it. And you should plan this to take approximately 3 days, the whole assignment. And this is also available in English and German. So basically, looking at our overall certification system, there are 4 different certificates that can be achieved. And these are the ones that I've shown you on this slide. This is a bit of a sort of an illustration about the practical certification test for the user requirements engineering professional. You see here the let's say the 6 to 10 people in the classroom, and what they have to do as part of the test is, in the beginning of the test, they will be shown a video where you see an interview between a professional a user requirements engineer, let's call him, or user researcher, if you like, interviewing a user in a specific context. And the participants of the test, they are given already quite a lot of the information that is which comes out of that interview. But part of the interview, they have to document. They have to document that they have listened to what has been said and that they are able to reproduce what has been said. So that's the very, very first part of that certification test. And once the video has been shown, it's a 30 minutes video, then you have 5.5 hours to analyze it, to identify what are the user needs within that description, which user requirements can be derived from those user needs. Then you have to structure them by the core tasks and subtasks that the users have in that situation. And this is sort of the practical assignment for the user requirements professional. And if we look at the usability testing professional, there, as I said before, you will be given a publicly available online service, and then you have a certain time. The thing is that you have to register with iSQI. You have to tell them, I want to do my practical assignment, let's say, within the week, starting on the 15th of September till the end of the week. Then at the beginning of this week, you will be given your assignment, and you have these 7 days altogether to complete it at home or in the office. You have to document your usability test sessions, so a professional from the field can analyze whether you have, let's say, complied to the criteria of facilitating such a usability test, that you have not assisted the user, that you have not manipulated the user. So you have to hand in that videotape for each and every test you have done, 3 tests, or each and every test session, which 3 test sessions altogether that you have to complete, and you have to come up with a written report. And all this has to happen within 1 week, but you as a participant decide which week this is. Okay. Here is a bit of an insight into our designing solutions professional. It's a figure within the curriculum. It's at the very end of the curriculum. Lots of people print it out and make a poster of it. It shows you the full process of designing a user interface. It doesn't mean in practice that whenever you design a user interface that you go through all those stages, but all those stages exist, and depending on the complexity of your project, you might have to go through those stages, sometimes even repeatedly. In other design situations, you might just pick certain elements of it and use them as the basis for your design. But when it comes to the certification test for the designing solutions professional, you are faced with the deliverables that come out of those design activities that we see here. And you have to show that you are able to create those deliverables that we see here. And you won't be faced with all of them, but a selection of them will have to be drafted. And yes, and for this, again, you have 1 day, and it is in a classroom setting. It's an observed activity. Okay, right. Here are already the courses that have been announced for this year from companies that are accredited by the UXQB to run those trainings. Those advanced level trainings are typically 3-day classroom trainings from professional people who apply exactly the curriculum of the UXQB and simply prepare people for the certification test. When it comes to the foundation level, those courses typically take 2 days. Having said that, quite interesting. I just said that for the foundation level, these courses typically take 2 days. More and more of our providers, even for the foundation level, take 3 days for the training, because these trainings are highly appreciated, and in most cases, we get the feedback that the course duration was too short. And based on that, it's all absolutely up to those who run the courses, but 2 to 3 days for the foundation level, 3 days typically for those advanced levels. Right. For each of our certification offerings, there is what we call a curriculum that shall enable you to self-train or to train yourself, not necessarily taking a training, but the curriculum basically aims at 2 target groups. It's people who prepare themselves for a certification test on one hand. On the other hand, it's for our trainers, because the trainers are obliged to teach what has been written in the curriculum. Also, for each of our qualification programs, we have a full glossary of terms with definitions of each and every term that you will be faced with in the certification test. The certification procedure itself is fully described. There is a full set of test questions for the theoretical tests, where you can self-assess where you are with regards to the curriculum. And there's also a model course where we say, if you want to accredit yourself to be a training provider, this is the model that we recommend to run the course. So, you know, we are sort of very transparent with the whole procedure. There's lots of things you can read, and all of what we're doing is based on ISO standards, in particular part 9241, which is the series of ISO standards relevant to usability and UX. In particular, part 11, part 110, and 210 are the core standards that we apply, and also the so-called common industry format for usability, which is ISO IEC 25060 and following. And if there are terms or concepts that have not yet made their way into ISO standards, what UXQB has as a policy is whatever we put into our documents has to be sort of, let's say, accepted literature that we find in the field. So we are not set up to invent concepts or come up with our own ideas. It's practitioners who run the organization, and whatever we do it based on published knowledge. Okay. Here's a quick view on our website. You know, all the documents I just talked about, you just find on www.uxqb.org. There's a documents section in there, and everything I talked about you find there. Glossary of terms, you know, if you ask yourself what's written in there, well, for example, the term user interface is defined. Having said that, it is already defined in ISO 9241 part 110. We are using this definition, but we are clarifying it. We are giving examples in our curriculum. And what you see here is 3 water bottles, you know, and even a water bottle has a user interface, because user interface is defined as all the controls that people need and the information that they need when they are performing a task with an interactive system. And you know, if you ask yourself what task does a water bottle support, well, it's the task of drinking water. And when you drink water, the first thing you need to know when you fill a glass is whether the bottle that you are having at hand contains water or something else, you know, that you might not want to drink. And if you know, and you know, part of this is opening and closing the bottle, and also holding and what's the word, swiping, is it, holding a bottle and turning its position, you know. And even here we see that there is a control on a water bottle. The one in the center has an explicit, let's say, control to hold it decently. The ones outside don't really have that. And if we look at the user group of, you know, children or people with small hands, although this bottle on the left side looks rather attractive, it's much harder to operate this bottle than the bottle in the center, you know, and pretty much the same applies to the one on the right side. Anyway, user interface, for example, is a defined term. And just to give you an idea of our test questions, this is a typical, let's say, format of a test question. There is a question, and there are 6 possible answers, and either one of those answers, or 2 of those answers, or 3 of those answers are correct. And here, you know, you're being asked which 3 of the following components are part of the user interface of a car for the driver of the car, not for a policeman. It's a totally different situation. And it gives you 6 choices, and either 1 or 2 or 3 of the 6 are correct. The question always clearly states whether 1 or 2 or 3 are correct. And here, you know, if you ask yourself which of those 6 are part of the user interface of a car for the driver of the car, it gives you the option of the accelerator, the number plate, the gear stick, the bumper, the rear view mirror, and the brake disc. And, you know, we could spend sort of a half an hour now on debating on the answers. But if you look at the right answers are these 3 here. And without getting into a discussion, if you ask yourself, why are these 3 correct? What I engage you to do is to download our curriculum, or sorry, to download the public test questions or exam questions for our foundation level. Within there, you will find this question, and you will find these answers, and you will find an explanation why the 3 that are highlighted in gray are correct, and why the other 3 that are not highlighted in gray are incorrect. And this is the way we work. We try to be as transparent as possible. And part of that transparency is that we have published test questions where we even explain why certain answers are correct and why other answers are not correct. Okay, this is this is what you get if you passed the foundation level. Those certificates all pretty much look the same. Visually, the content is quite different. And for the foundation level, the claim of such certificate is that the holder of the certificate is, in the case of the foundation level, familiar with the general terms and concepts in the field of usability and user experience, in particular in the following 7 areas of competence: the process itself, the definitions, concepts, and guidelines, how to specify the context of use, how to specify user requirements, how to produce design solutions, and how to do evaluation. Just familiar with the general terms in those competence areas. In the advanced level situation, we would state that you are able to apply those concepts in practice. And in the user requirements engineering, it's the specifying the user requirements and understanding and specifying context of use. In the CPUX DS, which is the designing solutions, it would relate to producing design solutions, as we see it down here. And in the CPUX UT, the focus on the certificate is obviously on usability tests, usability inspections, and user surveys. Okay. Now, where are we on an international level? I said before that UXQB is an international organization, and the internationality, I don't know if that is good English, the international power comes from our international member organizations. So in practice, this means that from the organizations that we see on the screen here, 5 organizations from 5 countries, each of those organizations are asked to supply 2 to 3 technical experts that are renowned within the organization. The organization has to elect them, and these experts are then actively developing and updating those CPUX documents within the organization of the UXQB. So it's really an international effort that we're making here. And the UXQB is more than happy to have even more member organizations from around the globe. So we are engaging organizations who want to participate in the effort to join us and form the documents that are the basis for certification with us. By the end of March, we have been certifying 6,250 professionals, mainly in Europe, but not only Europe. There are certified professionals in China, in the United States, in Africa, in the Arabic part of the world, in Asia. We have based on those remote exams and based on those Pearson VUE centers, which exist really around the globe. I was surprised when I first came across that concept. I wasn't aware of it. But we have been certifying 6,250 people by the end of March this year. I would assume by the end of this year, we are far beyond 7,000. Okay, wow, I'm done. 5 minutes to 2, even 5 minutes left. So thank you stay here. Thank you very much for listening to me. I will now hand over to Franziska in case there are questions, comments, whatever. Franziska, it's all yours.
Right. Thank you so much, Thomas, for all those information. And as I need some new glasses, I really need to check out this Mr. Specs thing. So let's see, maybe the next time we do this e-seminar, I will have like red, very big glasses or something. Let's see. What I see is that we don't have any comments so far or any questions in the different streams we offer. So if you have any questions, please now feel free to ask them in the comments. And if we won't get any questions, we can end the stream. But I will wait just one more minute.
Sure.
Saying again, thank you, Thomas, for your time, for taking the time. And we are looking forward to the next big CPUX, for example, paper exams that are already scheduled for next week.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But yeah, there's no question coming in, so I think
no problem. I mean, Franziska, probably you mentioned it anyway, but you have our email addresses, and we are more than happy to receive any questions, comments, inquiries after this webinar. So please feel free. You know, if in half an hour you think, man or woman, actually here's my question, just send it to us.
Right. So thank you very much again, Thomas. Thank you all who were looking, and I wish you all good Friday, or some of you already have Saturday, I think. So have a great weekend.
Thank you very much. Great weekend, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.